Welcome to the Vocation of the Business Leader podcast. I'm Greg Belster. Here, we explore how Catholic leaders let Christ and the teachings of the church he founded guide their work, integrating faith and business. Each episode offers inspiring stories to help you live an undivided life. Let's meet our guest, Ed Cutler, CEO of Alpha Phlebotomy Group. Welcome, Ed.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, Ed, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, you bet. Well, where do I begin? A little bit of history. I guess I'm a father. My wife and I have been married for 31 years, and we have 5 sons and a daughter. And now we have 8 grandchildren and 2 more coming in the next, one due at the end of this month and one due in July. So
Awesome. Congratulations. That's awesome.
yeah, thank you.
So go ahead.
And also I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, and I've basically had my own business my entire career.
Yeah. So tell us about your childhood and your early faith journey. I want to hear about Cutler's Curbs.
Ooh. Okay. So I'll start a little bit before that, maybe. I come from a long history of entrepreneurs. I realized later, and I'm looking at my history, even like from my great grandfather all the way through, my dad had a large mortgage company in California, and so I kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial world, and I was always busy doing things, even as a little kid. And when I was 7, I saw somebody paint addresses on a curb, and I'm like, I got to do this in my city where I live, because all the addresses on the curbs were all chipped and everything else. So I'm like, I could do this. And so I talked to I actually had to get I went and got my business license with the city that I grew up in. I had to have the chief of police sign it because I was underage. But I did my first business license when I was 7. My dad was my first investor. He invested in these stencils. I went to the hardware store and I found these stencils that were brass, and they slid together. I still have them to this day. So my wife said we should put them in a glass cabinet or something. It was fun. And I got the special paint, and I started painting curbs. The city where I lived even referred people to me. So I would get calls, and my mom would drive me to where I needed to go and paint the curb. And that was, in the 70s, and I my biggest week. I remember my biggest week in the 70s. I made $74 one week.
Wow!
So it was nice, not bad at 7, 8, 9. And I do have. I actually recently found my box. I still have a box of business cards that I had made. I didn't have the business cards until I was 9, because I took my bike down to the print shop, and I actually still have them here. They're here on my desk today. That's the history of Cutler's Curbs.
Yeah,
it was fun. I actually, even still did curbs if I was, even later. Like my family moved to another town when I was 14, and it was like I was a little bit tight. I wanted a burger, so I went out and painted a few curbs. I just went I just knocked on a few doors, painted a few curbs, and it's like, now I can buy myself a burger and do what I wanted to.
Exactly.
It's just like, if I needed cash flow, I just went out and made it. And so yeah, that's a small little portion of my whole story, I guess, growing up.
Yeah. So then at 18, you bought a cookie store?
So yeah, I was over the years, I also had like 3 different paper routes at the same time. When I had, later I got paper routes, and I did that like through high school and stuff too. Eventually my mom took it over, just to do the exercise. It was like, okay, I'll give my paper up as I got started getting tired and stuff. But at 18, after I graduated high school, I was going to school. I was planning on doing my pre-med, and so I was in school, but I needed some more cash to, I didn't want to do student loans and stuff, so I went through the route and paid for it. My parents helped pay for things as well, but I was like, I wanted to do it, myself, and so I went. My brother and sister-in-law actually started the store years before. They sold it to a lady. It became really well known, actually nationwide, for the taste of the cookies. People actually ordered from that little store to have them even shipped. They were really good. But my brother and sister-in-law sold the store, and they actually opened up another restaurant and store in another town. They still made the dough and everything, that was for that place. The lady that bought it, though, didn't keep set hours. She was like, okay, I just don't feel like going in today, so she wouldn't show up. So she started running the business into the ground. So I went in, I offered her a really low price. She took it. I bought the cookie store. I went in, I repainted, I put in new counters. I made the place look really nice, and I built up the business over the next 9 to 10 months, and sold it for 10,000 more than when I paid for it. Made some more money.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I didn't want to be running a cookie store all the time, but I built the business up.
Yeah.
Built a reputation, then sold it for more.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that was my stint. I was there for about 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fast, quick turnaround. It was just a refurb of a business.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was 18. It's kind of weird. It's like I think back at it now. It's like, wow, how did I do that? But it was just fun, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So then you became EMT?
So yeah, as I had the store, I also was taking a EMT course. The store, we closed the store at 5, and I had an evening class of my EMT course. So I took the EMT just because I was really wanting to pursue a career in healthcare, and didn't know, I knew I was going to go for my pre-med, and so I was also doing my, my basic courses for pre-med and everything as well. I was juggling a lot, but it worked. And so I worked a little bit as an EMT just on volunteer side. I did work after on the weekends and stuff. When the store wasn't open on Sundays, I was working as an EMT, for a small ambulance company, just getting some experience basically. And after I sold the store, then I started. It was like, I really wanted to. I needed to keep the income going, so I eventually went and took a phlebotomy class as well, just to have all these little skills under my belt. And I found that I made more in the hospital as a phlebotomist than I did in the field as EMT. So I started working in the hospital as a phlebotomist while I was still going to school full time. Going for my pre-med and keeping a really full load. But so and then I was like, and then I met my wife, so we were dating and stuff, and then I was like, I need to do something more than just working here. So I went and took during the summer, I actually went and took a crash course in as a paramedic. So I took a paramedic crash course. It was a 6-month course. I had to stop all the other classes until when I did this. But it was fun. It was so I actually got my paramedic as well in California.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. So I was working. Yeah, I'd be working as I was working as a phlebotomist. I also worked at a cannery during a canning season to make extra money as the paramedic and EMT.
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife and I met, and we got married. And then we I was working. I guess I'll share this story on how we moved and really continued on, I guess. So we got married. We were in California, and this one weekend, my in-laws were heading to Oregon, and they said, "Would you like to join us for? We're going on vacation for the weekend." It's like, yeah, we'll go. We were free. We were both free at the time. Uh, and in California, my wife was basically like an entrepreneur as well. She started a daycare. So after we got married, she started daycare, and she actually made more than I did working at the hospital. She made more than I did doing daycare in our house. But we went on vacation to Oregon, and just for fun, it was like, I'll check out and see if they have any phlebotomy positions open. It was a really beautiful area where we went on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called the hospital, and the lab manager said, "Yeah, we do. We're looking for a phlebotomist. Come on in for an interview." I'm like, "But I'm on vacation." He's like, "Don't worry about it." So I did have clothes for an interview and stuff. So I go in with a thermal fax. Remember the old thermal fax,
Yeah,
right? With
yeah,
the
yeah.
curled up paper. So it was a really wrinkled up, curled up thermal fax resume, and and jeans and a t-shirt. And I go to this interview. But before the interview, my wife and I, we went to breakfast. Oh, and I need to mention this too. My wife was also pregnant with our first child at the time. So we said a prayer at breakfast, and I said, "Okay, Lord, here it is. If they hire me on the spot, well, no, it's not time for us to move. But if if they hire me on the spot, well, no, it's time for us to move.
Mm-hmm.
But if they give me the job, if I get the job, but they have to call me back, well, no, it's not time for us to move." So I'm like, I was like, this is a cinch. We're not moving to Oregon because, most big hospitals aren't going to hire you on the spot.
Right, right.
So I go to this interview, and he says, "So when would you like to start?" And I'm like, let me get back to you. I need to talk to my wife about this one. Um, I went back to the hotel and told my wife. She goes, she's like, I was like, "Don't worry, we don't have to do it." It's like, but what do we do? We said this prayer. We
Mm-hmm.
told this. And I said, "Well, let's just test it out and see what God has. I mean, if it works out." Literally everything worked out like seamless clockwork. And within 2 weeks, we were in Oregon.
Wow.
I gave my notice at the hospital where I worked. We were in a 1-year lease on our home, and we called the property management company. They said, "Oh, we have a family who would love your place,"
Mm.
and they let us out. I mean, it was just like
Yeah,
everything worked out the
yeah,
way God worked it. It was just seamless.
yeah.
Um, so we moved to Oregon, but we moved to Oregon with now one income, and it was an Oregon income, not a California income.
Mm-hmm.
So we were circling the drain pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
On cash flow, it's like, okay, we were blowing through our savings fast. And so as I was working at the hospital, I would get calls at the hospital from people looking for a phlebotomy class. So I started looking around. I couldn't find a phlebotomy program or anything anywhere. And so I was like, we got to do something. So I sat down on a weekend and I wrote a 40-hour phlebotomy class. I took a risk, and I put a 4-line ad in the classifieds, and I got over 200 calls off of it.
Wow.
And the hospital where I worked let me use their classroom for free in the basement. And I started my first phlebotomy program, started teaching phlebotomy, and got ourselves out of debt again. It was like, okay, now our savings is staying,
Mm-hmm.
And that went on for quite a while. We actually grew that quite a bit, but that's kind of a longer story. That was probably longer than this. We grew that, and it was fun. But eventually, I got out of teaching when I would take my students to an assisted living facility to do some practice with patients. And when we were practicing, when they were doing that, it was managed by a pretty large laboratory, and they called me this one day and said, "By the way, we have this company who'd like an on-site health fair. Can you guys do that?" And I'm like, "Sure." This was basically before on-site health fairs were really heard of for an employer. Back in that was in like 1996.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, "Sure, we could do that." So they asked us to do 4 locations. So we actually rented a motorhome, took our kids with us. And my in-laws actually traveled with us on that trip and watched our kids while we did the health fairs. The health fairs were done by noon every day. And so we did these 4 locations and then, came back. I billed them for it, never thought anything of it. And like a month later, the company calls me, the company health benefits office said, we do a rating system of all of our companies. You guys scored the highest of all of our companies. Would you like to do more next year? It's like, yeah, we could do more. This was kind of like before, internet was really big or anything. And so I didn't know who the company was. I'm like, sure, I'll go to the meetings. I went to the meetings the following year, and they handed me a spreadsheet of over 80 locations, about 28,000 employees.
Wow.
So like, okay, we could do this. When I went through that, I brought it home, talked to my wife about it, and we mapped it out across the country. It had to be done between basically June 1st and August 31st for their open enrollment, all of the patients.
Wow.
So we mapped it out across the country, and we drove the country. We bought a motorhome, and we took our kids with us again. And we took my wife's sister at the time was a teenager, so she traveled with us the first couple of years. But we did this. We traveled the country June through August every year, doing health fairs for companies, because in those 3 months I made more than I did all year working at the hospital.
Wow.
And so I went to my supervisor though that first year, and I said, I'm giving you my notice. And she goes, you can't quit. I'm like, why not? I said, I have to. I said, I have a contract that I make double what I make here all year. And she goes, I'll give you a 4-month leave of absence. Okay, sure, let's do that. So I took a 4-month leave of absence every year, actually for like 3 years, doing health fairs. So we traveled the country. We had a blast. We had a lot of fun. Our family, our kids still remember it, traveling across the country. We would basically travel from the Washington-Canada border. And we actually went over into Canada a few times just to stay there and just to go to Vancouver and for fun. But we'd go from basically the Washington-Canada border all the way past Chicago and back. And we zigzagged the whole country.
Wow. That does
So we'd take the northern route one year and southern route the next year heading out. And it was fun. A lot of memories, but and then when we came back, when I came back from those long trips, I would go back to work at the hospital, and I would work the morning shift. So I worked the units, I would work the 3 to 11:30 in the morning, come home by 11:30, and I'd come home about noon, take like a 30-minute power nap, and then get up and go to my garage and go to my little desk in the garage and start calling clients, my past clients that I worked with on the health fairs. I would call them and say, you guys do drug and alcohol testing too, right? Yes, we do. So how about if I come on site and do your whole plant on site? That way you don't have to send them off site. And it saves them money, saves them time, no downtime on because these were manufacturing plants. So there's no downtime on the lines. And they're like, oh, that would be perfect. So I started scheduling drug and alcohol testing in their facilities. And I would do like a state at a time. So I would do like, parts of Texas, and I would just fly out. I would fly out, and go to all of those facilities over maybe a week's time, make an extra, $5,000 that month, fly home. That's how I supplemented my income throughout the rest of the year while I still worked at the hospital. I would take a few days off and go do that. But that quickly started out to outgrow us. Because the demand started getting to be more. And I finally left the hospital when I came out. I was working I went to just strictly part-time and on call. And, on call, I was almost working more hours working on call. I'm like, I can't do this, I'm only here to just cover some health benefits and stuff. And I worked a small 4-hour shift one day, and I came out, looked at my phone, checked the voicemail, and I had missed, a $5,000 contract. I'm like, this is costing me more now to be not working 100% for myself. So we prayed about it. Said a St. Joseph novena, and I gave my notice. That was at the hospital. I gave my notice in 2000. That was I remember December of '04 when I gave that notice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last time I did any, small work at an employer.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I've always been an entrepreneur, but I've always sought for the next thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's been a fun ride now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds very interesting. So then you went full time doing that. So then when did you start spreading out and hiring employees and contracting out?
You bet. So after I left the hospital, I was still doing a lot of the traveling. I was missing my family a lot because I would be, hopping on a flight and going to these different places. I can't say that I have to say this too though. It was fun at times because this company had 6 corporate jets, and they would call me sometimes and say, we need somebody in Texas on this day. I was like, I don't know if I can get a flight that fast. Don't worry, we already have a seat scheduled for you on the flight. It's like, okay,
Okay.
make it from Oregon to. I remember calling my wife from the tarmac in Texas, and she's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm already at my rental car." She goes, "It was under 3 hours, from
Mm-hmm.
Oregon to Texas," and it was really nice.
Yeah.
But we started to our kids were getting older, and traveling every summer was getting rough. So I started contracting out to certain areas of the country. And then I would contract with phlebotomists to meet me, to work with me. Instead of me doing all the blood draws,
Mm-hmm.
basically I would do all the blood draws. My wife did the height, weights, and blood pressures. When we were on site, it was go. It was like fast push. I had to get through 100 people pretty quickly. But when I started contracting out to these phlebotomists, um, they would meet me, so I would get to meet them and get to know them in person. And it just started to really build a really strong network. I started building this really strong network, not even really meaning to, but when I got to know them, and then it was like the following year, hey, by the way, do you know anybody who could work with you? Because now you're going to run this event this year.
Right.
And that's how we really started that in the beginning. But, then we had some issues where it's like, I would get a call from a general manager at one of these places. It was like, they did what? I'm like, how did this happen? And so we had to put some KPIs and some pieces into place, really some onboarding guidelines
Mm-hmm.
to know that what I expected for patient care carried out across the board. And I actually talked with the CEO of the company that had us do all of their health fairs around the country. He started his company from scratch and then had over 80 locations, around the country of a very large, manufacturing company. And I talked to him one day, and I was like, so how do you make it to where you have, no matter where I go, it always looks the same. Not looks the same, it always feels the same.
Mm-hmm.
He said there shouldn't be any difference between the management and the regular employees working on the floors. Everybody works together as a team, and you got to create that teamwork. And so that's what I really tried to take to heart, because growing this, I was like, I was winging it all along, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was just like growing this from grassroots and scratch, and so we really put in some really strong, strict onboarding process. I owe that to my wife because I'm just a doer, and I'm like, okay, let's just do this, let's
Right.
go. And my wife says, wait a minute, we need to put this, I need to detail this out. And she makes it very, very detailed of the explanation for, like she made it in those first days. She made all of our SOPs, which we called the White Book. And then we had a local office as well in Oregon because the need was growing for people needing regular blood draws. And so we opened an office. We had to get our customer service team. I mean, it just continued to grow. So our office with our customer service team and everything, they also were phlebotomists. We hired phlebotomists to do that as well because they knew and understood the market space.
Yeah.
They understood what was happening in the field. They understood how to explain to a phlebotomist in the field what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to retrain that because I'm good at training, but to put it on paper for the first time, it was rough for me. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so I basically relied on the team to really start doing that. And and especially I owe all of those things, those first SOPs and everything else to my wife, because she set up the groundwork for our team now to take and build on.
Mm-hmm.
And and then over the years, the need just kept growing. The need, the amount of blood draws that are needed in this country every day is, believe it or not, astronomical. We actually did a professional market survey back in what, 2007 or 2010 now or something like that. Anyway, it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
We found out that there was over 1 million blood draws that happen in the country, not in a hospital setting, every single day.
Wow.
And so the need is there. It's a massive need. And we're here to serve patients and serve the need.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to continue to grow and bring on more phlebotomists following our vetting process. And I could say today we are super blessed because all of our phlebotomists that are in our system and in our network now have the same dedication, and that's for patients first.
Mm-hmm.
Our dedication to serve patients exceptionally. And we use the philosophy of Colossians 3:23. And everything you do, do as unto God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually, we just put together some new name badges that are going to go out to our phlebotomists. And it has Colossians 3:23 on that. Because they could look it up if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's our philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do the best that you could possibly do in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been fun.
Mm-hmm. And so that's going out to the contractors.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, and it's good. It's
because
bold.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't like it, they don't need to work with us.
Yeah. And it's weeding out. It's a good way to weed out if they don't agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
I mean, we're in the service business.
Exactly.
We're here to serve others as Christ serves his church.
Absolutely.
And if you don't serve that way 100% completely and wholly,
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason. Because for us, it's really important on the phlebotomy side for pre-analytics. If we don't do our job right, the labs don't get the right sample,
Mm-hmm.
and doctors don't get the right results.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not correct in everything you do, there's no reason for us to be out there and seeing a patient.
Right. Absolutely. Let's see. What advice would you have for a business leader that is living a divided life, that is not as bold but wants to be?
For guys especially, for men, especially in a leadership position in business and in life, for me personally, I really strive to model after St. Joseph. Think of St. Joseph, who God chose to be the foster father of Jesus. What an amazing person he must have been to be, what an amazing person to be chosen by God to be the foster father of his son. And so I really strive, and I ask St. Joseph a lot to really pray for me as a husband, as a father, now grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
and as a business owner and a CEO of a company. Help me to be a good leader. And that's for, that goes in every aspect of my life. Because in business, it's you can't be one way in business and you can't be another way at home. You got to be the same way all the way across the board. You got to live life. You got to live your truth, and you got to live, what you truly believe. And it doesn't have to be always, bold and in your face. but it's got to be by example. People got to know, and if they look at you and they know that you live by what you truly believe. And when I talk to our phlebotomists around the country, they know by my talking that I we have they know by my talking that I really rely on my faith and our Lord for direction every day. And I just say yesterday I was talking to a phlebotomist, and she actually told me, she said, this is why I really love talking with you. If you call me for something, I really love talking to you because you express your belief in God through your everything that you do and what you talk. I was like, wow, thank you. I didn't even realize I did some of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's true. And by talking and stuff, there was something basically that was going on in her life, and I said, we'll make sure we keep you in our prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where she thanked me on that. It's those little things.
Yeah.
You have to, I don't know, for me, I talk a lot, so I could be very outspoken. Maybe I share too much with people, but it's my faith, it's my passion.
Mm-hmm.
It's our faith.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I love.
Yeah. Yeah. And people that they watch you. More is caught than taught. Just like your kids. Your employees are also watching you and seeing if you're genuine.
Absolutely.
And then when they see
Definitely.
that you are, then that's loyalty. And
yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You have to do it too as as a father. I have to say I'm very proud of my kids. We have 5 sons and a daughter. Our sons are older. We had a 12-year gap between our youngest son and our daughter. So all of our sons are grown and married and everything. So it's I'm very proud of them because they're living their faith. And I always did it this way. It's like, if I can, if we show my wife and I, if we show our kids to lead their children to Christ in the Eucharist, then we did our job. And I'm very proud of them because they all are. They are all living their faith, and it's been amazing. We have amazing daughter-in-laws, and God is good. And
Yeah.
our daughter is still at home. She's 11. So
Okay.
It's weird to have only 3 of us at home now.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I saw that you have some family members working with you. What advice would you give business leaders that that include family members in their business?
Well, I guess first advice, but this is tough because I live and breathe entrepreneurship. And I was just basically like family gatherings, holidays and stuff, try to keep business aside. Sometimes I'll talk business and my wife goes, no talking shop at dinner. Is like, but it's not really, it's one of those things, but it's true, I guess. But there's certain things, that we, I have to say, I really love working. I work with one of my sons every day. We're not together. He lives in Steubenville. He and his wife live in Steubenville, and their son. And I'm in Oregon. We actually moved our corporate office for our phlebotomy company to Steubenville. It was just better. Now we can also pull from some students coming out of Franciscan, and it was better overall. And I don't have to go to an office every day now too, which is actually kind of nice. But my son is our CRO, our Chief Revenue Officer, and he's doing an amazing job. We work really well together because he's more like my wife, where it's like a very attention to detail and very methodical. And me, I'm like, oh, let's just do it this way. Let's just keep on going. And he's like, it's in process. It's going. And it's like methodical about creating the steps to it.
Mm-hmm.
and it's been great. And I get to see him on video every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to work with him. Um, and and I have another one of my sons that is doing our lab testing side. He is growing our Your Health Co lab side. We have an entire section of our company where we offer direct to consumer lab testing and lab testing in all 50 states. So anyone, if they want to get a lab test, or our motto is basically take control of your health today.
Mm.
People can take control of their health by um, ordering whatever lab testing they want to, and we could place that order for them without a doctor's order, and we could send a phlebotomist out to see them and get it done.
Wow.
Um, and that's what my other son is getting that whole section of our company solidified. He and we have fun working together too. I understand him very well because he's very ADHD like I am, and so uh, you know my other son Patrick, who's our CRO, he has his work cut out dealing with both of us, on the ADHD side, but he does a good job with it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um,
So is that
but
up and running? Is that
it is.
uh-huh.
Yep, correct. It is. Um, what we're doing right now is we could do it in all. We can do that orders in all 50 states. But what he's actually working on is setting up basically brick and mortar locations for people to do a walk-in as well. So we're starting our Oregon location right now, and that we offer basically direct to consumer lab testing, drug and alcohol testing. We actually serve like a lot of the court systems for drug testing and that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
and the Department of Transportation, DOT, we manage a lot of that part. There's all kinds of weird stuff we do in
Mm-hmm.
specimen collection.
Mm-hmm. And what is that called again?
It's called Your Health Co Labs.
Okay.
So Your Health Co, and then you can look up, on Your Health Co Labs, and yeah, you could always place an order anytime.
Yeah,
We
I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We
Awesome.
actually started that many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I wanted to get a lab test on one of my sons. I saw some symptoms, and I used to be able to do that, and then I wasn't able to do it anymore. They changed regulations. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It took me almost 6 weeks to get a result that would have taken me 10 minutes to find.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured people need access to their own lab testing.
Yeah, I didn't know you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep, absolutely.
That's awesome. So tell us about Your Health Pro.
So Your Health Pro. So in the phlebotomy world, as we were growing, we've grown it to about 8,000 phlebotomists around the country, and it was very difficult for our team to manage that. It took a big customer service team to manage all of these phlebotomists, and if an order popped up in a particular area, we were doing old school, where it's like we were starting with zip codes. Nobody's in this zip code. Then we'd delete the last number of the zip code. Do it we'd basically delete a number to see who's in that area,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really tough. And so it was like, we need to do something fast to be able to be more efficient. We created an app. We actually we worked with a company, and we started having them build out certain things, and we basically created an app called Your Health Pro. We were going to build it under the phlebotomy side, but then we decided, I was like, I don't want to be limited. If we're going to take all of this money and spend a lot of money on building software, we don't want to be limited to just phlebotomy. This healthcare sector needs a change.
Mm-hmm.
We need change. People need more access, easy access to healthcare, whether it be a physician, nurse practitioner, physical therapist, anything, even a massage therapist, no matter what, even podiatrist, or somebody to, pedicures, that type of thing for, diabetic feet and stuff. Any of these things, people need better access to it. And that starts with also blood work and lab testing. So we created this app called Your Health Pro. It, in essence, is like we called it in the beginning like Uber for phlebotomy, but then we added an entire marketplace to it, which is almost like DoorDash, basically, or the Uber Eats type of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so now there's a marketplace where healthcare professionals can log in, create their own storefront, create their own profile, whatever services they offer, they can put that in there. And now patients can actually go look for whatever services they're looking for, find the provider in our software, place the order with them, and schedule. And then it will automatically, when the provider goes out to see them, it's going to send them a little notification. If they have the app on, if they have an app that they use, it's both app-based or web-based. So if they use the app directly, it'll send them a push notification of when the phlebotomist is en route. If they ordered it on web-based, because we wanted it both web and app-based, because some of the older people, some people don't use apps all the time. Mm-hmm. So if they did it from their computer, they can still place the order from their computer.
Yeah.
And if the order comes in, it'll send a text message to their phone when the phlebotomist is en route, or phlebotomist or healthcare provider for that matter, the health pro or professional is en route, and they have a link on there to track and know an exact ETA.
Oh,
so what we did is we closed the communication gap, and we essentially built a business management system for mobile health providers. And so we're perfecting it under the phlebotomy side. So we're perfecting it under Alpha Phlebotomy Group and the phlebotomist. But in the app stores, it is called Your Health Pro. And yeah, they can, basically we're just launching a lot of it because we are still perfecting a lot of things. But we're launching it on the phlebotomy side. So if anybody ever wanted a phlebotomist nationally, they can actually go into our app or onto the website and order a phlebotomist anytime. And how it works on payment, those providers that go in there, it's free to join. We charge a small percentage. We just charge a small convenience fee to the patient, and then a small percentage on the back end if they choose the free option to be in there. It's a way for mobile health providers to grow their business. A lot of mobile health providers know what they do, and they do what they do best. They see their patients, they can take care of patients no problem, but they don't really have the capacity, or they may not know everything about running a business.
Yeah.
So we created an entire business management system. We also have a whole marketing system that we built. Same thing with the customer service. If they wanted to outsource their customer service, our customer service team can answer phones, schedule their appointments, all of that for them as well.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's ultimately to serve others. And ultimately, we looked at, when we were really creating this, we were like, how do we serve more patients better? And that's by serving our providers. If we serve them, how many more millions of patients could we serve together, and letting God's glory shine through the work that we do?
Absolutely. Well, that's great. So I will put in the show notes links to all those websites that we talked about.
You bet.
And was there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to talk about?
Let's see. No, I think that's about that. The biggest advice though I could give to Catholic business owners, especially, live your faith 100,000%, and same thing in business. Don't be two different people in both. Always do 100%. Always. I recently had a health issue where I had to have a surgery, and it was a difficult recovery. It was very short, but it was very difficult, painful. But God really changed me through that. He actually tested me through it, and he pushed me through this, and it was like, do you trust me? I was like, yeah, I do, no problem. But it was like, do you really trust me? And he did that 3 times to me. Do you really trust me? And it really opened up my eyes to, wow, do I really trust Holy? Because I tend to go in on, I'm a driver. I tend to go to work every day. It's like, okay, let's do this. Let's keep going, move.
Right.
But it's like now I've been working at it. It doesn't happen every day, but I really work at, okay, Lord, carry me through this. Carry me through this day. Let my will, let your will, I want to know, help me to know and to follow your will.
Right.
I may know it sometimes, but not want to follow it. It's one of those things. But because I was like, but I think it should go like this. But I realized, just recently through that I just have to really surrender everything. And I actually listened to the surrender prayer, the surrender prayer on the Hallow app, and just I had to do the surrender novena. And it's like, help me surrender, because I have a tendency to not. I have a tendency to go, I know better. But in reality, our Lord knows the best for us. And surrender.
That is absolutely right. That surrender novena is quite difficult.
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ed. Really appreciate your time.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on today's episode of the Vocation Business Leader Podcast. We hope you found inspiration as we explore the powerful union of faith and business. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, share it, leave a review. God bless.